Welcome to Boxing During Dinner. I'm here at Randazzo'S Little Italy here in Coral Gables, Florida, Miracle Mile, the best Italian restaurant in Miami. If you haven't been here, it's phenomenal. And if you're not from Miami, jump on a plane, take a flight, come down here and eat some Randazzo'S. But I'm joined here by Ramiro Ortiz, promoter, boxing historian, member of the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. Ramiro, welcome to Boxing During Dinner.
Armando, it's always great to be at Randazzo'S. Not only is the food great, but you get to talk boxing while you're eating. So
exactly.
What could be better than that?
We're here to talk about Mayweather and Miguel Cotto just a few days away, Ramiro. What do you think of the fight? And I guess the question is, do you think Cotto has a chance of beating Floyd Mayweather?
Well, Cotto has a chance. When the bell rings, anything can happen. Floyd Mayweather is already considered one of the greatest fighters who ever lived. And 47-0, it's hard to argue with 47-0. There's an old saying in boxing that says speed kills. So, everything indicates to a Mayweather win. However, Cotto is a guy that's going to be putting pressure on Mayweather from the opening bell. The question is, can Cotto keep up that pressure for 12 rounds? If Cotto can keep that pressure up and stay inside of Mayweather for 12 rounds, bang at the body, if he can walk through the Mayweather jabs and combinations that he's going to have to walk through, which isn't easy. It's a tall task, but I think Cotto stands a chance. It's a tall task.
It's a very tall task, but
he stands a chance.
I guess the blueprint is there. People know what they have to do to beat Floyd Mayweather. Now the thing is getting it done inside the ring. Having De La Hoya, I guess, nearby, which Cotto has De La Hoya there. He had him at his training camp. Do you think De La Hoya offers any insight whatsoever into Mayweather?
It's hard to say, but I will tell you this. When De La Hoya fought Mayweather, and De La Hoya was working behind his jab, De La Hoya was very effective. It was when he turned into slugger, and that's when he got frustrated because he couldn't get inside of Mayweather's defense. If Cotto can work behind a jab and put pressure on Mayweather, I'd like to see the fighter that fights Mayweather, constant pressure for 12 rounds, and doesn't give Mayweather a chance to set up. Mayweather needs to set up to do his thing. If you can put that kind of pressure on him, that disallows the setup, I'd be curious to see what happens.
The thing with Cotto, Ramiro, is the red flags that are all over the place. I told somebody recently, they asked me for my opinion. I said Mayweather's going to win between the 7th and 8th, around there, by cuts. And they asked me, Armando, what, Mayweather's going to wear plaster too? And I go, no, but the plaster did his damage. Cotto's face after that fight was a mess. His face hasn't been the same since. Every time he gets hit, you see the welts, you see the blood come out. And in his last fight against Margarito, which was a drained Margarito, a Margarito that shouldn't have even been fighting. I mean, standing next to Margarito, I saw he was probably blind from that eye, and they're not saying anything. No conspiracies, but I stand by what I saw. But Margarito, as slow as he is, hit Cotto in that last fight. Imagine what Mayweather will do.
Like I said, speed kills in boxing, but a good left hook to the liver can neutralize.
My favorite punch.
That can neutralize a lot of speed. If I were betting, I would bet Mayweather. Speed kills, but I don't think that to think it's a walkaway fight for Mayweather is accurate. Depending on can Cotto put the pressure for 12 rounds and keep the pressure for 12 rounds.
And how early he puts that pressure, because if he does that, he needs to do it from the opening bell.
From the opening bell to the closing bell. I think the key is don't let Mayweather set up. And we haven't seen Mayweather fight backing up yet. He's done a wonderful job of going laterally every time that you put pressure on him. Can Cotto cut the ring off when Mayweather starts his lateral move? A lot will depend on that. If Cotto's successful in cutting off the ring, that will be interesting. Nobody's been able to do it yet.
As a boxing historian, Ramiro, a lot of times I see these fighters go into the ring, and like we've discussed, Cotto needs to apply pressure from the get-go. They know what they have to do. The fight begins. They don't do it. Why do fighters do that? Because I've seen fighters that just have a puncher's chance and they don't go for it.
Well, a stiff left jab in your face for 12 rounds.
That too.
Sometimes, takes care of that.
That too.
Every fighter goes in with a fight plan. Both the A fighter and the B fighter. The question that determines a winner is who allows the other guy to implement his plan. If Mayweather does not allow Cotto to implement his plan, which I'm sure is constant pressure and working behind a jab, then the obvious is going to happen.
When we got here to RANDAZZO'S today, Bernard Hopkins was here, the legend, and you told me off camera that he would have been able to compete in any era. He would have competed with Monzon, with Hagler. Do you think the same could be said for Floyd Mayweather? Could he have competed at any era in boxing?
I think so. Mayweather combines defensive skills, offensive skills. This is a fighter who was born in a gym, and that's been his life. It's easy to knock modern boxing. I don't subscribe to that theory. While for sure we don't have as many great fighters as we had in the 70s, 60s, 40s, 50s, and so forth, I think that fighters like Bernard Hopkins, I think fighters like Manny Pacquiao, fighters like Mayweather, these guys I think could have fought in any era and been competitive. Now, would they have stood out in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s like they stand out today? I don't know. Because back in the 60s, there were 6 or 7 Mayweathers. So, it's hard to say.
Don't you wish you had a time machine and you could just go back and make these fights?
Yeah, but I'll give you
great fights that could have been
made. You said earlier I was a boxing historian. When you read the Ring magazines from the 20s, guess what it says? Boxing isn't the same anymore. All the great fighters
exactly.
are gone. In the 30s, they were saying the same thing. In the 60s, they were saying the 60s. My God, you had Emil Griffith, Louis Rodriguez, Dick Tiger, Harold Johnson. A guy named Muhammad Ali was coming up. Eder Joffrey. Yeah, great.
Some of the best
fighters.
of all time.
And when you read the magazines from the 60s, guess what all the editorials were? These fighters don't compare to the fighters of the 30s. So I try to stay away from that. I think a fighter like Miguel Cotto would have been a competitive welterweight in any era. Now, would he have been champion of the world when you had 8 divisions and 8 world champions against a guy like an Emil Griffith, Virgil Akins, against those kinds of fighters? I don't know.
Right, and before we go into the Canelo Mosley fight, because that's another big fight that night, what's your prediction? How do you see this fight turning out between Cotto and Mayweather?
I pick Mayweather late round stoppage.
And I agree. As I mentioned, I think it's going to be on cuts or some sort of stoppage. And I think Cotto with this fight, it's a great payday. The last great payday probably of his career. So hopefully he has some good people around him. And actually, you know what? Before we leave this whole Cotto thing, his trainer Pedro Diaz, do you think? Do you buy into this whole thing that he's changing Miguel Cotto? Because I really don't. I think that guy's been in his career way too long to.
You can change a fighter when he's an amateur. You can change a fighter when he's transitioning from amateur to pro. You can change a fighter early in his professional career. Pedro is a great trainer, don't get me wrong. But changing a fighter at this stage of his career, that's very, very, very tough to do. Very tough to do.
And now going to Canelo.
Now, Cotto, before you leave Cotto, I give a lot of credit to Cotto for one thing, and I admire Miguel Cotto tremendously. He's one of my favorite fighters. Cotto has never, ever used the excuse about the bandages with Margarito. Everybody's talked about it.
Everybody around them has.
Everybody's talked about it except one guy, and that's Cotto. He's never used that as an excuse, and he's a warrior, and that's the kind of mentality that he has.
And also a warrior fighting that same night is Shane Mosley. At the twilight of his career, this is probably his last big fight. Wouldn't you like to have seen this fight even 4 years ago?
I got news for you. 4 years ago, Mosley would have beaten him.
I agree.
Now, I'm not taking anything away from Canelo Alvarez, who's one of the hottest, most exciting up-and-coming fighters, but this is the classic boxing story. The up-and-coming fighter fighting the fighter who, you know, his best years are behind him. Mosley, I would put in anybody's all-time list. I think Mosley at his peak was one of the best fighters I ever saw, and put him right up there with anybody, anytime. But Mosley is past his time, and now it's Canelo's time.
So before we continue, Romero, Mark Randazzo has brought out some food for you because I cannot eat seafood, so I would literally die if I eat this. But Romero and I guess Daniel over here, who we're gonna introduce in a little bit, we'll eat some food.
To eat Mark's cooking and talk boxing, nothing in the world can beat that. Right here at Randazzo's. And I remember Mark as a fighter.
It's funny, but I stay back. As much as I love Mark's cooking, I cannot eat fish. So this is all on Romero. But as we were talking, Romero, about Canelo and Mosley, as Mark finishes up serving you, Romero, do you think Mosley has one more fight left, like he did against Antonio Margarito?
It's hard to say. Usually, what happens is a fighter of a certain age looks good, looks okay, and then all of a sudden there's that one night that he becomes an old man in the ring. And I've seen that happen to the best of them. Your question is in reverse. Do you think he can have that one more good night? That's tough to say.
Very tough.
If I had to bet, Mosley has always been in shape. He's not one of these guys that balloons in between fights. He's a clean liver. All of that works in his favor. You have to ask yourself, is this the night that Mosley becomes an old man in the ring? And if this is the night, he's in with the wrong guy, with Saul Alvarez, who's a real killer.
We'll see what Canelo does on May 5th. But I want to introduce a gentleman to my left, Daniel Placides, who's been there with Boxing During Dinner from the beginning. He always writes to us, asks us questions to David and I. So Daniel, welcome to Boxing During Dinner. You're on now.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
What do you think of the Cotto Mayweather fight? You were mentioning to us earlier that Mayweather's probably your favorite fighter of all time.
You know, Mayweather is just outstanding. You know, from, like I said, from marketing to in the ring. If I had to bet my money, it would be Mayweather. But like I told you earlier, you know, my Latin machismo, you know, has to pull with Cotto. Because
so you're gonna cheer for Cotto, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna cheer for Cotto. You know, my father-in-law, he's a big fan of his, so if I do that, they'll kick me out the house. You know, if I'm cheering the other way. So
Puerto Rican.
Yeah. So I'm pulling for Cotto.
Yeah, my father-in-law's Puerto Rican too, so I gotta wave the flag. And what do you think of the food here at Randazzo's?
Amazing. It's the best food I ever had. It's great. It's awesome.
And you know, we got a lot of people that come here. If you go look through the walls here at Randazzo's, I mean, Hopkins, Holyfield, Boom Boom Mancini's a regular here at Randazzo's. I mean, the man's an amazing chef, was an amazing fighter. So come on down to Randazzo's. Catch us on a Monday night filming Boxing During Dinner and talk boxing with us. Maybe you'll get on like Danny over here did. But that's it for Boxing During Dinner for this week. Thanks a lot to Romero, who's enjoying his fish, my poison. But
it's great to be here.
I'm sure it's delicious. Talk about your food before.
Well, I got the branzini and the spinach, and Mark didn't give me any pasta. Mark, I'm not trying to make weight. But
I'm sure that's a little healthier though.
But the food here is delicious. I think it's the best Italian restaurant in Miami.
Absolutely.
And what's better than having Italian food and talking boxing?
The best of both worlds. So from Randazzo's here in Coral Gables, Boxing During Dinner here with our boy Danny and Romero, and we'll see you next week. We'll talk about Cotto Mayweather, see who won the fight.